Get to know our exhibiting artists ahead of the Affordable Art Fair this March. Meet the Artists, a mini-series with me, Joanna Milne. So I'm here with Louise Craigie, a contemporary abstract painter from Ipswich. So you reached out to me while we were renovating the gallery, and I am so glad you did, because I looked at your work and I really loved I loved all of your pieces, especially there's so much kind of bold color and form in your paintings. There's so much kind of intrigue and energy, and I just found them really fascinating. I find the composition in your work really interesting. And so I wanted to know, when was it that you became interested in painting?
Interested is a funny one, because I think by default at high school I was just fundamentally, that was really honestly all I was any good at. And even then I probably wouldn't have thought I was good, if you know what I mean, but it was always passionate and interested in it. I wasn't particularly academic. I was always the English performing arts art kind of person, and so I was always encouraged through high school. So whether that's ended up being something that why I've gone into education myself as a teacher. But I remember even then going to galleries and pieces, and we'd be taken to the sort of Tate and all those types of things. And at the age of 15, 16 and stuff like that, not really getting it, kind of like, especially the abstract ones that I would now be super loving, going, yeah. Oh my God, I could do that, or what is that, or whatever. But there was always a connection. Like, I always just was interested by it, and I did just love it. I think really it truly probably came together. I fell in love with print and textiles and colour in A-level. My teacher was awesome. And then from that point on, did my degree at Manchester, and I knew that was for me, just being creative. I had no idea where it was going to go. But even in my textiles degree, where we did focus on print, weave and knit and all those types of things, I didn't make clothes. It was about the construction of fibres and fabrics for that. Mine was always painterly. Mine was never mass-produced kind of concept. There was always a painting element. Howard Hodgkin was huge for me at that time. So it would be taking big, large painting marks into fabrics or whatever. So, yeah, I think it really sparked from there. And I don't really know. There was never, I can't sit and say there was a pivotal moment where I just was like, love painting. You know what I mean? There wasn't that for me. It was a definite growth and development, and being nurtured through school. I was nurtured through school. I was like, told, that's great, or challenged, and I think that was going from there really.
But you've been teaching art, I guess, for some years then now, and you're head of creative art faculty, is that right? In a school in Essex?
Yeah, I started obviously just teacher of art. Then I went to become head of art at the school I'm at, so at a school in Essex. And I live in Suffolk, but teach there. And I sort of have gone up, I suppose. I've gone from being head of art. Then I was faculty of creative arts, which was dance, music and drama. And now I'm a faculty leader and part of the senior leadership team. I actually oversee areas like all the technologies, basically, all STEM, art. So there's heads of department run those, but I manage them. But still teach art. That's the thing I would teach. And then I have my managerial level as well. So yeah, I've been doing it at high school level and sixth form level for over 20 years.
So that leads me on to my next question. Did you find that learning how to teach art has been helpful in advancing your skills as an artist?
My pathway into teaching was quite sort of not a traditional one, really, because when I left university, I didn't want to continue in education anymore as such. I was just wanted to get out there, really. So I got asked to become an artist in residence at my previous school that I was at. And it was through that then they sort of said, look, there's an opening here to be an art teacher. Would you like to do the graduate teacher scheme? So I never really did the PG, C course or whatever, the traditional way of doing it. So I wasn't necessarily actually taught how to teach art.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you learn teaching and learning and pedagogy skills. So how to teach. But I think because of my passion for being an artist has remained strong all the time, they run parallel and then marry up.
Yeah.
So I think without one, there couldn't be the other for me. For me. So when I'm in the classroom, it's really authentically my passion is there and I want to teach it. And then the skills that you learn through just about what it is to how we all learn, how we all take things in, how we all have to go through scaffolding of learning to embed something or to take something on. And because I think I have that grounded understanding, because I still do it myself as a practitioner, I then think, how could I best teach that
Yeah.
to the students in a way that will work for them? And I think as well, like they do, well, I always talk about my own work or my own connections, or just recently, I just put a post on our platform this morning on Instagram, just because I just went to Amsterdam a couple of weekends ago and went to the Van Gogh Museum. So I'm always sort of talking about what have I just seen, or what have I just done, or check this out, or have a look at this. And I
Yeah.
think they quite like the fact that I'm not just teaching it just for the sake of it. You know what I mean? Like I still
Yeah.
genuinely love it. So yeah, strangely, it's like they just both run parallel.
Hmm.
What one for me feeds the other, you know.
Yeah. And you predominantly work in oils and acrylics, is that right?
Yeah, I do. I mean, acrylic is very much what I'll start with because I get a bit impatient with my work, actually. I spend quite a lot of time thinking about it. So when I then get in to do it, I kind of want it done there and then.
Yeah.
So oils doesn't allow me to do that straight away. So acrylics is definitely where I'll start. And then there's something about oils, especially at the moment. I fell in love with oil bars a lot. They
Hmm.
dry a little quicker. I love the mark making and the texture they give. They bring back that element of draw and paint. And then I've actually been bringing in a little bit of screen printing as well. Like I do love printing, you know, and so some of the narratives that I've been developing over a few years, I'd like to get them made into sort of more bigger established screens I can reuse and reuse like I used to at university. But yeah, at the moment I just use it. So they are a bit mixed media sometimes, but in the main, acrylic base with
Hmm.
elements of oil on the top. Yeah.
Yeah. You're very much like me. And I was reading the other day actually that you have marathon painters, marathon runners, and sprint runners or something, meaning the ones that are really impatient that have to use acrylics, something that's just really quick drying and just go, 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 put it out there, get it framed, done. And then the other people that can just sit for days and days, weeks and weeks on one piece of work, which I've never really been able to do. I used to do it more so, but I think now I have got a level of impatience where acrylics work really well for me in that sense.
Yeah. It's a skill I do. My work can still take us like a series of time, but not like working on it meticulously every day. You know, it will be
Mm.
that I want in that moment. I love that first moment. I do love that first moment. Yes, a blank canvas can be scary, so you just put something on it or blank piece of paper, whatever. And then because I'd spend probably more time thinking about my work than sometimes doing it because of my job. Um, I'm just so, and I've got sketchbook after sketchbook of ideas and things I want to just put down and see that I do love that first part. And then often I will turn that one back around or I'll just put that one to one side. And I often do like to start 4 or 5 all at the same time because
Mm.
I've given myself the time to go into the studio. I want to be able to maximize it. And
Yeah,
so to just sit on one and think, oh, just need to wait for that to dry, or
yeah,
so, and that's why sometimes, again, certain parts of my work will echo one another because they are
yeah,
done at the same time. So it could be the colours that are on the go at the time, but
mm.
explored and pushed and tried in different ways, or a similar series of compositions from the same page in a sketchbook. So they may have a similar energy about them, but then I quite like that they almost become a little series, you know? So that's quite
Mm.
nice.
Yeah. So when you go on Instagram, for example, there's thousands and thousands of artists now, all creating. And it's so inspiring. And if you're anything like me, you go down a big rabbit hole and you find that you've been sat there for hours just flicking through. Um, but what ultimately makes a painting beautiful or interesting to you?
Um, an energy. There's just, I think I think a lot actually when I even go. So if I think again, my recent trip to Amsterdam, or I do quite a lot of city breaks every year, and we'll always go to like, me and my husband, we'll always go to like the galleries and things like that. So I do connect with artwork on Instagram. Often it will be because they've done it. Often it's more how they've put it out there than maybe sometimes the art. And I don't mean that in a
Yeah.
rude way.
All
That
the
you
aesthetics around it.
absolutely, and that's clever and that's great, and there is a place for that. But I think really my connection for art will be when I'm live with it in a space. And sometimes the connection can be because I've taught that painting for years, because as part of our, say, curriculum or whatever, and I turn a corner and you just see it, and something that just automatically takes your breath away. But it could be because, like I say, it's historical and it's an established piece that you just can't believe you're now seeing, or it could be because you've never seen it before and you were like, oh my god, I didn't even know this person or this existed. And it might sometimes be that you don't love the whole piece, but there's a section of it. I often will photograph just sections, and I'll come away and connect with that. Colour, I am connected to colour.
Yeah.
Colour does resonate, a pattern and a rhythm and an energy. I don't know, just something that makes you pause and look. Sometimes it can be when you even don't connect with it massively. I think it's important to take your time and take a look at something. But yeah, I mean, it is that energy, and and I like the rawness of seeing them in the real life. They actually are more comforting to see. When you see them on Instagram, when you see them in books, they're quite intimidating. You can feel quite like, oh, I'll never be that, or look how amazing they look, or glossy they look. And when you go and see them for real, you see the scratchiness of the canvas, or you see the dry brush mark that actually looks, when you do that yourself, you think, oh, that doesn't look very finished, or you see the raw edge, or you see, I don't know, you just see the energy and the realness in them, and they feel strangely more obtainable. You actually think, oh, actually, it is okay to leave my work a bit more raw, or a bit more less is more, or whatever. And I that's what I connect with, just seeing them in the flesh, because they are a little bit more accessible. Even the really, famous ones, even going to see Van Gogh at, museum, and I love his stuff. And I don't really work like that, but just going to see it, it's just vibrant. It just comes off the canvas, or there's work that just sings to you, and you just like, yeah, and it just seems like you can actually feel it being done, and it just feels, like, say, more raw. So I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're inspired by local landscapes. And we have pieces in the gallery. Here, for example, there's one that's called Feels Familiar, which is an abstract of a boatyard in your area. What would you say are the main themes or concepts explored in your artwork?
So, strangely, when I think back to being at university, I was definitely, abstraction was big, and I made them into these big giant rugs, hand done them all myself. And but even then, I was still sort of painting sort of very flattened out, like Deba Corness kind of still lifes. When I came away from uni, I got into work and this, that, and the other, and a lot of my work became quite a bit more floral. Still abstract and expressive to a degree, but it was quite floral. And then strangely, in the last sort of 12, 13 years, my children were young, we'd got our dog, and I was revisiting spaces and places of my own childhood, and spending time in areas that I hadn't maybe been again, or walking with the dog. And I just reconnected, I think, with where I grew up. And then also, like, even through COVID and the lockdowns and stuff, my son really got into sailing. And so you end up spending a lot of time in certain places. And I really started to just, I like connecting with a space or a thing and re-looking at it over and over and over again. And how many ways can I see it? How many ways can I reconnect with it? How can I break it down? Or well, I don't even try and break it down. It just becomes, so some of my paintings will be much more expressive landscapes, and you can see it. And then and like the one you spoke about, becomes more and more about breaking it down into a narrative, because you are become so much more familiar with it. And just recently I've been painting some still life pieces, but they're still about color and shape and pattern, but I really love collecting ceramics. So they're things that I'm constantly seeing in my home and have done for years. And suddenly I just really fancy painting you, you know, and trying something. So even though they seem quite different narratives, which they are, I think for me it is about something I connect with and then me wanting to capture it somehow. And definitely in the last few years, like I say, I do revisit similar and same places. They are going to be local because that's where I spend a lot of my time.
Yeah.
That's not to say I haven't painted other places. Strangely, that painting you talk about was part of a curated exhibition I did where the first two paintings were actually of St Ives, because I just connected so much with that particular visit, going to the Tate on the beach, the space. I've been to a couple of local galleries that I found inspiring, and I just sat and done 2 drawings, of which I came back and done these 2 very flat acrylic paintings. And obviously they're not local to me, but I connected with them. And then the only other painting that was in the whole exhibition was one that set back from it, of a space that is more familiar. And the concept was like, let's talk about moments where we just connect with a space or place. And it doesn't really matter why. And it could be that it's near, it could be that it was far, it could be that it was a one-off, it could be that you see it all the time. And let's have a conversation about those moments. And then I just like put 2 chairs in front of the work, and it was all about, let's have a conversation about moments and where we
Yeah, I
connect.
love that. I love that. And you featured in a magazine called Art Ed Australia. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, again, well, I mean, that was 2021, so 2021, and work really started selling well for me in lockdowns, especially internationally. So going off to Canada and New York, and then this particular lady, Sophie Tripp-Smith, she is like an art collector. Very, very interior style. Her home's absolutely stunning, and she lives in Australia. And we just started connecting. She just was messaging me how much she loved my work, da 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 da. And then obviously with shipping and everything, she just bought a smallish paper acrylic piece. I sent it over to her like that. She got it all framed up and showed me how it looked. And then she got selected to be featured in that particular, I mean, I've got it here. It's like it was an interior kind of design magazine, and her home is just stunning. I mean, that's her there. And her home is just full of artwork. And she kind of sort of said, it just hangs around me. It's just in my space. And she's like, she said, I get to hang out with it every day. And then I'm just on like her main feature wall. It's probably quite hard to see.
Wow.
Amongst all her, and she collects work all over. And so, yeah, it was just nice to get a mention in there and for her to have it. And then ever since then, we have stayed in contact. At one point, she was going to start a gallery out there, but that never quite came off, which was a shame. But yeah, so that was exciting. And then more recently in 2023, I did get selected on the, what was it called? It was the art, it's on the pin page on my, let me just check. Yeah, the New Art Project concept, which is an online magazine where they sort of showcase what they consider to be emerging abstract artists or contemporary painters. And I had a big, nice double page spread in there. And one of the paintings that you are taking to Affordable Art Fair Arrival is one of the ones that was featured. I think the other one is actually as well. I promise it won't be boring. The pink one. That also was the 2 main paintings they chose. Big, glossy, lovely. But it's an online magazine, and there was a small interview done there. So that was fab, So it's nice to have things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's an abundance of digital content now with social media platforms. It's such a competitive market, and we're having to adapt all the time to new technologies. It kind of takes away a bit from the art and the freedom to create. And we have to consider the algorithm and how we get our work seen and just to stand out from the rest. Do you find this aspect to your work challenging, or are you pretty adept with that side of things, or maybe there's something else that you find more challenging?
Look, the bottom line is I think Instagram or all those type of threads and all those types of platforms are really fabulous. And I have made some wonderful connections that I would never have made. I wouldn't have come across you probably had I not have,
No.
found you on there and stumbled across you. I've made some wonderful connections with artists that are and makers and creators and galleries and stuff that I wouldn't know about. I think it can be something that you've got to be really mindful, and that's not just in the art world, to be honest, all of it, about not to use it as something to beat yourself with. Does that make sense? Like, it's because you can sit there and get lost in it and think, oh, look how great they are. Oh, look how good that is. Oh, look how much they're doing. It's all kind of like, I love a little bit like, especially with my personal account, it always looks like, oh, I'm having the best time and and actually, sometimes you want to do that account where will the real me please stand up, like kind of like actually before that there was this happening, or like in my studio before I put that lovely picture on, I was literally having a breakdown because I couldn't make, something wasn't going right or whatever. Or how many shots it takes just to get one, which I put on Instagram. There's about 30 which you'll take. I do enjoy that side of it. I'm happy to have, I think I quite like people connecting with me and my work. So I'm happy to have me, which I'm called on my Instagram account, me. And I don't mean it like look at me. It just is about me being authentically me. And this is who I am. Take me or leave me, if you see what I mean. And I think I enjoy doing the content to a degree. I'm just not going to be ruled by it. And I think sometimes though, if you don't play the game, you don't quite jump where you need to. But I don't really have the time and energy for that. So I do it in a way that I think works for me, that I'm comfortable with. Maybe if I was doing this more full time and didn't have my job, which I obviously take seriously as well, juggling both, I would probably put more content on and be mindful of what I can put on and how I can do stuff. But I do what I can when I can. And like I say, I'm not going to be ruled by it. I find it, a bit much.
Yeah. So I've got one final question because we're running short of time. This is just a fun question that I've been asking everyone. If you could go back in time and step into the shoes of any artist, who would it be and why?
It is actually really hard, that one, because I've always been in love with, really, ever since I really started to do what I'd call my artwork seriously from degree level, what you call the St. Ives group post-war kind of time. And I probably would go back and be someone like Patrick Heron or William Scott or someone from that particular group. I just love that area of the world, actually. So down in Cornwall and Eagle's Nest, where he used to live, I love the whole group that they were. I love what they were representing sort of post-war and that freedom and that expression and the abstraction that started to come out from that time, the sculpture of that. I don't know. I mean, there's many places I'd love to and people I'd love to be, but I suppose I have always connected with that and the females in that group as well as the males. Peter Lanyon, all of those are still quite pivotal who I connect with now. So to maybe go back to work in that area of the country, something like is beautiful. So I don't know, that was my when I thought about it, you go with that sixth sense of where you sort of mind goes, and that's where my mind went. But there could be quite a few, it'd be exciting all round.
I
do
too many.
I do love that moment. And then I love what was going on in the States at the time as well. So there was just this whole explosion. And I think that period of time for me, I've just always had a connection with. So, to live in that moment would be quite nice.
Well, I could talk all day. It's the time has just flown by, and it's so lovely to speak to you, Louise. We're taking about a dozen pieces with us to the Affordable Art Fair of yours. Then there's some very fresh pieces, aren't they? They're literally just off the easel, kind of just off of the framers now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those in the flesh. You'll also be there, I think, one day. You're there. I'm going
to pop along on the Saturday. I'm meeting up with a friend who I did go to university with. We're hooking up because he's up north, and because I went to Manchester, so we're going to hook up. We're going to come along for the day. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I've been there a couple of times before. The energy's great. That you are submersed in a lot of art.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be great. I feel excited to have some, like you said, some literally box fresh pieces that have not been seen. I haven't even seen them framed. They'll literally get back to me and be shipped off to you very soon. So I'm really excited to just see them. And I love how you've mixed up, because I love how you do it in the gallery. And I'm really excited that you've chosen me to represent your first time with the other artists you've chosen. I think they will sit so well together, and I know you'll do a marvelous job. I really do. How you do your gallery space and curate it, if you do that there, I think it's going to be awesome. So I
Thank
can't wait.
you. I think we're going to have a great stand, but
Yeah, no,
I'm
I
very
do.
lucky to have all the artists and to have you exhibiting with us. It's great. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, me too. Fingers crossed it all goes well. That would just be a fabulous experience all round. And like I say, it's busy, there's great footfall, there's great conversations. It's just all art, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's wonderful, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all you could want. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time today. It's been really lovely chatting,
Yeah. Thank you.
and we'll speak soon.